Hello, everybody, and welcome into the first edition of the Prep Red Zone Oklahoma Preview Show. I'm your host, Michael Knight, the director of Prep Red Zone Oklahoma, the guy who's written probably 99% of the content that you can find on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma and its history. So happy to be doing this. We heard a lot this summer about the desire for more content, the desire for specifically more free content, and this is where this show comes in. We have a ton of video that we've shot over the last 18 months or so, going back to last season, even the spring before the 2024 season. So we have a lot of video, a lot of clips, a lot of highlights in our archives at this point. So what better way to showcase it than talking more high school football in the state of Oklahoma? So this is what you can expect on the Prep Red Zone Oklahoma Preview Show. We're going to give you an update on what the latest articles have been on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so and be sure to use coupon code NIGHT25. That'll save you 25% off your subscription. But of course, all of our video content is free. All of our content on our YouTube channel is free, but we wouldn't mind having you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll be able to find all of our highlights, all of our preview shows, all of our video content, long form video content can be found on our YouTube channel. We'll also be putting plenty of stuff out on social media as well, but we would appreciate you to smash that subscribe button on YouTube. So what's new on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma? We'll also be breaking down some of the best games every single week with our 10 best games plus five more that we're keeping tabs on. We'll also be joined by coaches all across the state. And look, as this thing continues to grow and develop, we might be joined by players throughout the season as well. But we're starting off this season or this week and over the next couple of weeks with coaches that'll be joining us every single week. We'll also take a dive into breaking down the 10 players to watch this week. Of course, a lot of this stuff is also available in written form on PrepRedZone.com/Oklahoma, but we'll be breaking down the week zero players to watch. We'll be answering your questions. We put out a couple of tweets over the last week or so asking for your questions. What do you want answered here on the show? So we'll have a Q&A portion as well. And we'll take a sneak peek at our Player of the Year watch list, the new additions that'll be added every single Thursday. So, of course, this is the first week of the high school football season. We will have our first edition of the Player of the Year watch list coming out on Thursday. You'll get a sneak peek to who the next three, or I guess I should say the first three additions to that Player of the Year watch list. And then we'll also take a look at what's coming up, what you can expect on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma, from game recaps to updated rankings to top performers to a complete recap on week zero. A ton of articles that'll be dropping on the website starting on Thursday, really ending until Sunday night. We'll take a look at what you can expect on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. But let's start by taking a look at what's new. What's the latest on the website right now? And it started on Monday with our week zero 10 best games. We'll be breaking those games down later on in the show, but every single Monday we kick off the season, or we kick off the week, by taking a look and breaking down the 10 best games across the state of Oklahoma. And it's week zero. What's crazy to me is not everybody's playing, football this week as far as like a real four-quarter game. There's plenty of schools that are still scrimmaging, and yet there are so many good games across the state. There's really good games on Thursday. There's a ton of good games on Friday. There's plenty of interstate matchups where you have Oklahoma facing Arkansas or Oklahoma facing Texas or Kansas. There's some really good games across the state of Oklahoma. We break down the 10 best games every single Monday on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. This week, we also have our practice reports. Our practice reports are returning this season, and every single Tuesday, we'll take a look at one team that's playing in one of those 10 best games and break down some of the players to watch specifically from that program. This week, it's going to be Pryor. We'll have a practice report you can check out right now on the Pryor Tigers that came out on Tuesday. Earlier today, we also released our Week 0 players to watch. We'll be breaking down all 10 of those players right here on the Prep Red Zone Oklahoma Preview Show. But if you want it in written form as well, you can check that out every single Wednesday on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. All right, so we kick off the show every single week with a breakdown of the top 10 games. It's not really the top 10. We don't rank them. We used to in the past. It's pointless. It just causes pointless arguments. So we just say the 10 best games. So the 10 best games in week 0, and we start in alphabetical order with Bishop McGuinness making a short trip over to Edmond to face Deer Creek. You have 6A1, number 9, Deer Creek coming into this season. They have a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. They also have to replace Georgia Tech signee Grady Adamson. And I caught the Antlers back in the spring, and at that point, they were working with 3 different quarterbacks to try to find that replacement for Grady Adamson. And look, when you're talking about replacing a guy who is a 3-year starter, one of the best quarterbacks in the state, and now he's a true freshman at Georgia Tech, that's not an easy thing to do. The Antlers also beat Bishop McGuinness in their season opener last season 53-17, but something tells me with all the new faces on both sides of the ball and on the sideline as well, that this season's matchup is going to be quite closer than what we saw last season. Bishop McGuinness on the other side, they come into this week as a borderline top 10 team in Class 5A. 5A is absolutely loaded. I'll get to that, specifically later on in the program, but Bishop McGuinness is a team that you win on Friday night, and they're probably going to be bumped up into the top 10 already. That'll be a huge win for the Irish. They have a really strong running back group as well as an offensive line. So I think that this is a team in the Irish that can really dominate the line of scrimmage. They have multiple guys at running back that they can run down your throat. Really interested to see what Bishop McGuinness does this season, because they are playing a very tough non-district schedule. In addition to facing Deer Creek on the road, they also have games against Bishop Kelly and then several other Bishop schools, one from Kansas, one from Texas. The Irish are going to test themselves. Now, they're in that district with like Lawton MacArthur and Midwest City, so they're going to be tested. Newcastle as well. They're going to be tested early on, and that should set them up to have success once district play starts. So Bishop McGuinness and Deer Creek leading off our 10 best games this week. And if you're looking for a game to highlight as the game of the week, let's be honest, there's no question. It's Bixby and Owasso. It's number 1 versus number 2. It's a rematch of last year's state championship game. It's taking place at TU. We'll have Bixby head coach Loren Montgomery on later on in the program to break down the Spartans as they kick off the 2025 football season. But look, I can continue rattling off storylines coming into this matchup, but they kind of write themselves. But Bixby, obviously, everybody knows the dominance that they've had over the last decade. They've made it to 7 consecutive state championship games. They've won 10 out of the last 11 state championships. And by the way, they've made it to the state title game in 11 straight years. This year would be a clean dozen in a row for the Bixby Spartans. But before they can think about championship games, they have to take care of business in week 0. The Spartans are basically the opposite of what we saw last season, where they had to replace almost everybody, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They have 18 starters back this season, and they lead the state with preseason all-state selections. We released our preseason all-state team last week on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma, and first team, second team, third team, Bixby had 6 all-state selections heading into the season. The next closest programs, and there were a couple that were tied, only have 4. So there's it's not a big gap, but it's a small gap. It's a gap nonetheless. Bixby with 6 preseason all-state players coming into this season. They of course beat Owasso 43-42 in that overtime classic in the 6A1 state championship game a year ago. On the other sideline, you have the Owasso Rams. They are number 2 heading into this season. Bixby, of course, number 1. Owasso right behind him. And a big storyline this offseason was the return of Bill Blankenship. He retired following the 2023 season, and now he's back after head coach Antonio Graham left to take over his alma mater at Union. Bill Blankenship coming out of retirement to join the Rams once again and lead them into the 2025 football season. That's obviously a huge storyline. They did beat Bixby. Everybody, you can talk about the state championship game, the way it ended, but Owasso for 12 games was the best team in the state. And for like 12 and a half games, they were the best team in the state until they lost in overtime. They dominated. They ran away from Bixby in that season opener a year ago. Granted, as I just said with Bixby, they had to replace almost everybody. That was a very inexperienced Bixby team that would obviously grow and continue to learn. And by the end of the day, end of the season, they were the state champions once again. But Owasso beat Bixby 40-21 last season in the season opener. So when Owasso takes the field, they will not fear Bixby. And a lot of teams, when they face these Tulsa area powers, there's a little bit of fear. There's a little bit of that fear element. Bixby has been considered, the king of the mountain for a long time, and rightfully so. And there comes a lot of fear that goes into those matchups. Owasso has done it in the last year. They've beaten Bixby head-to-head, so they will not come into this matchup fearing anything. And to be honest, I don't think they have a reason to. They probably have the best group of skill players in the state. When you talk about the return of quarterback Drew Frankenfield, you also have running back Jaden Hall returning. Chris Zafaris is also back. He scored a couple touchdowns in that regular season meeting against Bixby. You also have a three-headed monster at wide receiver, Julius Wilson, Tay Bethel, as well as Noah Hill. That might be the best receiver crew in the state, let alone just in 6A1. So obviously it's the game of the week. It's a game that we'll be at on Thursday night. Looking forward to seeing how those two programs kick off the season. And if you haven't heard, the game will be played at TU's Chapman Stadium on Thursday night. And at first, the weather was not looking that great, but it looks like it's clearing up a little bit. So we should have a beautiful night to kick off the 2025 football season. Another game taking place on Friday night. It's the annual Hall Brawl between Cassia Hall and Holland Hall. Cassia Hall coming into this season as a serious contender in Class 3A. They rank number 3 in our 3A preseason rankings. Head coach Joe Medina coming into his 27th season as Cassia Hall's head coach. He has almost 260. In fact, if he beats Holland Hall this week, it'll be his 260th career win at Cassia Hall alone. Without a doubt, one of the best coaches in the history of Oklahoma high school football. Cassia Hall won 29-28 last season, and they've won 3 straight in the series against Holland Hall. And the Commandos might have the best quarterback in Class 3A as Barrett Mullen returns for his senior season. On the other side, you have Holland Hall. Head coach Brian Thompson going into his second season. Last year, he had to replace Tad Gross, another legendary head coach in Oklahoma high school football. Not an easy task, but Thompson now going into his second season as head coach of Holland Hall. 6 starters back on offense, 6 starters back on defense. And I mentioned how Cassia Hall has won 3 straight in the series against Holland Hall, but all of these games have been close. The 3 victories for Cassia Hall has been by a combined 10 points over the last 3 seasons. So this is an incredibly close matchup. It's obviously a very fun rivalry to watch, and looking forward to seeing what happens between these two 3A programs as we kick off the season. Del City at Edmond Memorial, another game to watch, 5A versus 6A1. This game was not competitive last season. Edmond Memorial got off to a fast start and then dominated on their way to a 35-0 victory over Del City in the season opener. But the Bulldogs are going to have to look very different offensively. They have to replace a 4-year starter at quarterback in David McComb. He's now a freshman at the University of Kansas. And they have a lot of new faces on that offensive side of the ball. But on the flip side, they basically returned everybody on defense. I think Edmond Memorial's defense has a chance to be one of the best, if not the best, in 6A1 this season. And they're going to be tested on Friday night as Del City comes in with 9 starters total on both sides of the ball, but they do have several explosive playmakers on the offense. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we see that clash of styles. Both offenses honestly might struggle early on in this one as there's a lot of new faces for both Edmond Memorial and Del City. Del City in particular, they do return a Player of the Year finalist. So when you're talking about some of the best players in the state, Del City does have one, if not a couple, coming into this season. They're looking to get over the hump in Class 5A. They've been knocking on the door, but those pesky Carl Albert Titans have continued to slam the door shut and continue to win state championships. So this is going to be a very good game to tell us early on what we can expect from both programs as they try to work in some of those new faces It's a game that we'll be attending at least for the second half, if not the majority of that game. So we'll have highlights of that program or of that game. We'll also have highlights of the Bixby Owasso game as well on our Prep Red Zone Oklahoma YouTube channel. You also have another massive matchup on Thursday. Everybody will talk about Bixby and Owasso, and rightfully so. But hey, I'm just letting you know, over in Tuttle, America, the Tuttle Tigers, last year's 4A runner-ups, are hosting the Guthrie Blue Jays, last year's 5A runner-ups. That's a really good football game. I personally will be at the Bixby Owasso game, but we will have someone there in Tuttle getting all the highlights from that matchup, as number 2 Tuttle in Class 4A will host number 4 Guthrie in Class 5A. And when you talk about the Tuttle Tigers, again, they are the 4A runner-up last season. They lost to Elgin. They beat Guthrie in their season opener last season 31-24, but they had to wait until the final minute to do it. They beat them 31-24 to open the season. That game was tied at 24 apiece until Tuttle was able to get the game-winning touchdown. They might have the best quarterback in the state. Cruz Campbell, coming into this season, he made a massive jump from last year. He might be the best quarterback in Oklahoma, and this is his first opportunity to go out during his senior season. We'll have Tuttle head coach Brad Ballard on to talk about this matchup, and more importantly, talk about what he has returning with his Tuttle Tigers as they try to make it back to the state championship game. On the other sideline, you have the Guthrie Blue Jays, another team that made it to the state title game a year ago. They lost to Carl Albert, but they were the 5A runner-ups, and I mentioned it multiple times last season. I didn't see it coming. I thought Guthrie, with the senior class that they had, and more specifically that they lost going into 2024, I thought they would take a bit of a step back, and I was wrong. I was wrong about that. They made it all the way to the state title game. Of course, they lose to rival Carl Albert in the title game, but still, that was huge. They have 6 starters back on offense. They have 6 starters back on defense. And despite losing to Tuttle last season in the final minute, the Blue Jays have had success against the Tigers. They've won 2 out of the last 3 meetings against Tuttle, and they're obviously ready to kick off the 2025 football season. Another game that I'll be at before I make it over to Edmond Memorial, I'm going to be over at Edmond Santa Fe for the Jinx Edmond Santa Fe matchup. Jinx coming into this season number 4 in our preseason ranks in 6A1 as the Adam Gaylor era begins. He replaces head coach Keith Riggs, who stepped down following last season. Jinx might have arguably the best running back in the state. I think a lot of people would agree on that, with KD Jones, the Oklahoma State commit, returning. They beat Edmond Santa Fe 48-3 last season. Santa Fe coming into this season at number 10 in our preseason rankings. They are looking to bounce back in a major way after going 1-9 last year. They have multiple Division I commits on the defensive line, and that's obviously one of the biggest matchups to watch, because you have a defense with Edmond Santa Fe up front on the line of scrimmage. They have multiple D1 commits with Landon Anderson, who I believe is committed to Oklahoma State. You have Jalen Battle, who's committed to Baylor. And on the flip side, with Jinx and their offensive line, you have Riley Kester, who's committed to Tulsa. You have Odafe Aruru, hopefully I got that name right, the big junior left tackle. He has multiple Division I offers. So you have 2 lines with Jinx and the O-line, Edmond Santa Fe with the D-line, and both of them have multiple D1 guys. So there's going to be talent galore going head-to-head, literally on the line of scrimmage. Another game to watch on Friday night, you have Elgin, the defending 4A state champions, hosting Lawton MacArthur. Elgin coming into this season number 1 in our 4A preseason rankings. The defending champs will open their season once again against Lawton MacArthur. They have to replace multiple Division I signees on the offensive line, as well as the 3-year starter at quarterback. So they are number 1. They are still the favorite in 4A, but they also have plenty of questions that we need to get answers to throughout this season. They did open the season against Lawton Mac last season and won 28-7. On the other side of the matchup, you have Lawton MacArthur, who once again comes into this season as a preseason top 10 team at number 7. This is a Highlander team that has multiple Division I commits. Joshua Rushing committed to Tulsa. Adam Austin committed to Arkansas. And then you have a quarterback in Avon Lachlan, who's going into, I believe, his 3rd season as the starter for the Highlanders. So they are looking to take that next step in Class 5A. And when you look back at last year, the Highlanders were one of the highest scoring teams in Class 5A. I believe they averaged close to 40 points per game. They could clearly do that with all the talent that they have back on offense. They could do that again this season. And will that be enough to get them over the hump in Class 5A, as they've had several first round exits in the playoffs over the last several years? Another game, switching gears, but staying kind of in southern Oklahoma, but going over to southeastern Oklahoma. You have Broken Bow hosting McAllister. McAllister will have a new head coach as Jeff Craig takes over this McAllister program after being the head coach at Blanchard for so many years. And he takes over a McAllister program that comes into the season ranked number 9 in our 5A rankings. And they might be flying under the radar right now, but again, I'm going to get into Class 5A and just how deep they are later on in the show. But McAllister has the talent to be one of those fast risers up the rankings. The district is tough. Their non-district slate is tough as well. But I think McAllister has the makings of being a really solid team this season. They did, beat Broken Bow early on in the year last season, 37-26. But this is a Broken Bow team that has a lot of expectations coming into this season. They come into the year at number 5 in our preseason rankings. They have arguably the most electric football player in the state of Oklahoma. If you haven't heard of him yet, you will very soon. Graydon Howe was a breakout star last year for Broken Bow. This was a Broken Bow team that went 6-4, but they actually missed out on the playoffs. That's just what happened. You lose the wrong games in district play, and you end up being on the outside looking in. There are very high expectations for Broken Bow as they return nearly everyone from last season. Another game up in the Tulsa area, you have Booker T. Washington hosting Muskogee, matchup featuring two programs that have first-year head coaches this season. First with Muskogee going on the road, the Dale Condict era begins after 2 decades of dominance at Wagner. Dale Condict becomes the head coach of the Muskogee Roughers, and I'm interested to see what happens there as he takes over a program that they have some new faces on both sides of the ball, but they have to replace a lot of really talented players that ended up at the next level from last year's team that made it to the state championship game. They did beat Booker T. Washington 56-21 last season, but as I mentioned, Muskogee's going to look very different this season from what we've seen over the last couple of years. On the other sideline, you have Booker T. Washington. Expectations are through the roof. After last season, they go from being a losing team in 2023 in 6A2 to dropping down to 5A and becoming a district champion. But unfortunately, for the second straight year, the Hornets will have a first-year head coach as they had to let go of Coach Batson, and taking over as Nate Goodman as he begins his career as Booker T's football coach. The Hornets, once again, do have high expectations this season in year 2, competing in Class 5A, and there is a lot of talent that is returning on the offensive side of the ball. This is a team with Booker T. Washington that has a chance to be one of the higher scoring teams in Class 5A. And again, you can start to catch the message that 5A is going to be very competitive this season. And then wrapping up the 10 best games is Sallisaw at Pryor. It's 5A versus 4A. Pryor opening a new stadium this week on Friday night, so I know the excitement will be through the roof. They come in at number 5 in our preseason rankings with 15 starters back on both sides of the ball. They have high expectations after they nearly made the 2024 semifinals a year ago, and they have a great blend of experience and young talent, but they're welcoming in a Sallisaw team that's also a top 5 team in our preseason rankings, number 4 in Class 4A, as they have 14 starters returning this season on both sides of the ball. They beat Pryor 31-14 last season. And what else can be said about head coach Brandon Tyler? He took over this Sallisaw program. They went 1-19 from 2021 to 2022 in those 2 seasons. In the 2 seasons since, they're 16-8, and they look like a team that could possibly contend for the state championship in Class 4A. Brandon Tyler, once again, firmly established as one of the best head coaches in Oklahoma high school football. That's all this guy does is turn around programs that have been struggling and turn them into immediate winners and contenders. Five more games that we're keeping an eye on and going over these real quick before we dive into our coaches' interviews. Just real quick, some notes on some week zero games that I'm interested in one reason or another. Lincoln Christian hosting Victory Christian. Lincoln Christian, a heavy favorite to win it in Class 3A, but a couple notes to look out for. The Bulldogs have won 28 games in a row. They're the two-time defending 3A state champions, and they're the favorites to win it again. But on the other sideline, you have Victory Christian, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in program history. RJ Wakely has taken over as their head coach in his first season as a head coach in his career. So interesting matchup there to kick off the season between two Tulsa private schools. You have Cushing at Berry Hill, a matchup of teams that are both ranked in the top 10. Both teams looking to be those surprise teams. For Berry Hill, trying to be a surprise team in 3A. For Cushing, trying to be a surprise team in Class 4A. They're in that district with Wagner. And who knows, now that Dale Condict is at Muskogee, who knows what happens with Wagner. Could Cushing, jump over the Bulldogs and become that team to beat in that district in Class 4A? I mentioned earlier you have a couple Oklahoma versus Arkansas matchups, a couple that I'm keeping an eye on. Union hosting Bentonville. These two teams played an overtime classic last year. Union was able to win that. It's the first game of the Antonio Graham era beginning for the Redhawks as he comes over from Owasso after helping lead them to the state championship game last season. And Union, as far as right now, it looks like they're still trying to figure out who the quarterback is going to be between Skylar Mormon and Dylan Taylor. Both looked pretty solid in the scrimmage last week. And then another Oklahoma-Arkansas matchup, Broken Arrow going east to Springdale to take on Springdale Harbor. It's the first game of the Travis Hill era at Broken Arrow, taking place over in Arkansas on Friday night. And there's a lot of hype around the Broken Arrow Tigers with Travis Hill taking over with all the talented players they had returning, plus the talented players that they brought in. So a lot of hype about Broken Arrow. They'll be opening the season at Springdale Harbor. And then finally, Community Christian at Washington. Community Christian's a top 10 team in Class 2A too, but Washington has also won 44 consecutive games. So they put their winning streak on the line as they kick off the 2025 football season. So that's a look at some of the 5 games that we're also paying attention to, a breakdown on the 10 best games. That's how we kick off the show each and every single week. But now we're going to switch gears to our coaches conversation portion of the show. And we got some outstanding guests. We got Bixby head coach Loren Montgomery. We got Tuttle head coach Brad Ballard, and we have Pryor head coach Kenny Davis. So we started off with arguably the best coach in the state. I don't think there would be too many people that would argue about that. Bixby head coach Loren Montgomery, 10 state championships in the last 11 seasons. And coach, you have the majority of your starters back heading into this season as we get ready to kick off 2025.
We've got a lot of returning starters back. Yeah, and you're right. Last year is a bit unnerving going into the season, having one returning starter on defense and I think 4 on offense. And so we've got a little bit more experience this year, and the guys have been working hard, and so anxious to get out on the field and see if it can all come together.
Coach, when I look at your roster, and we just put out our preseason All-State teams, and Bixby had 6 selections to that preseason All-State team. The next closest team had 4. So you guys definitely have talent back. You have D1 commits, whether it's Oklahoma State, West Virginia. I might be forgetting about some. You have maybe the best junior prospect in the state, and you have some really talented underclassmen coming up. I look at this roster, Coach, and it looks like maybe one of the more talented rosters you've had since you've been at Bixby, which, considering all the success, is saying quite a bit.
We do have a lot of talented guys. It's hard to say until the end of the season if it's one of the more talented ones that we've had. But on paper, you're right. As far as guys that are committed to go play at the next level and play college football, we have several guys that have Division I offers or that are committed to play at the next level. And so I think the challenge for us as coaches is to make sure we get the most out of those guys and continue to develop them, even with all the fanfare that they've gotten.
Now, you're not we mentioned the stars that you guys have coming back, but I'm always interested in the next guys. Like who are we not? Because look, you have a 3-year starter at quarterback in Carson Kirby. We mentioned all the guys that are already committed. Caden Penny, your star junior lineman. Everybody knows about those guys, right? So who are some of the names that we don't already know about that are, ready to take that next step? Because Bixby is one of those programs where you have a lot of those program guys that are waiting their turn and waiting their turn. And this season could be an opportunity to break out.
Well, we've got a couple guys on the offensive line that are those Bixby program guys that we always have that are maybe seniors that have waited their turn to play or seniors that nobody's heard of that maybe played a lot last year. And so we've got some of those guys. He was a starting guard for us last year. Sam DeWoody is an undersized offensive lineman that we have that's just an excellent player. I think has a chance to be one of the best offensive linemen that we've had around here. And then guys like Dawson Madden and Hector Garcia up front on the defensive line doing really, really good stuff. And safety Ben Rogalski. So we've got some guys that have waited for their opportunity and are ready to step up. Noah Ingles is another one of those guys. Maverick Nance, a guy that was one of our best blockers at tight end down the stretch last year, will start at inside linebacker. And so anxious to see some of the things that he's going to do as well because it means a lot to him and he's a hard-nosed football player. So got some guys that are going to need to grow up and develop and get those game reps, but really excited about the way they're going to play because it does mean so much to them.
All right, so we got the easy questions out of the way, talking about all the players that you have coming back, those guys who could take the next step. Now, a hard question. How do you replace Cooper Parker? Because you look at what he was able to do last season on both sides of the ball. He was one of our Player of the Year finalists. In my opinion, he was one of, if not maybe the best player in the state when you consider everything that he brought to the table. Obviously, the game-winning two-point conversion everybody remembers in the state title game. But offense, defense, Parker meant so much to that team. How do you replace a guy like that?
Well, he's at Harding right now, and I always tell everybody that Harding just goes and recruits everybody's best player. It doesn't really matter what size or measurables they have. And Cooper was our best player last year, leading tackler. He led the defense, flew around to the football, and then also rushed for about 700 yards in our jumbo or big package, and then made just some absolutely critical plays. And his last high school football play, I don't know that there was a bigger one than that. And so he's not a guy that you replace, and it's like that every year. You have some really good players that you lose to graduation, and you just hope a whole bunch of guys can step up in his role. And um, we had mentioned Maverick Nance at inside linebacker. Cord Nolan is a guy that we expect big things of carrying the football. Jack Gill, a junior. Running back, tight end, linebacker that kind of fits that same mold. Just guys maybe that no one's heard of yet that we expect to step up.
Now, big season opener, obviously, for the fourth straight year. You open the year against Owasso. The game kicks off on Thursday night. It's game week. Does this game feel any different at all, considering you guys have met so many times over the last several years? But more importantly, everybody remembers how the last one went as far as the last time Bixby and Owasso faced off. Does this one feel any different going into game week?
Well, a little bit. We're limited because we don't have any film on them, and they do have two new coordinators. So we're really just guessing on what Josh Blankenship, their offensive coordinator, what his personality is going to be, as well as Steve Neal, their defensive coordinator, what his personality is going to be. We know it's going to be different than Owasso was last year, and so there's a bit of an unknown, and there is a different feel because we're not maybe able to game prep like we typically are when we have film on our opponent.
Now, I'm sure at this point everybody's heard the game was originally slated to be at Bixby High School. You guys are the home team. It's being moved to TU, and I got to think that has to be considered an all-around home run on the Bixby front, both from a financial perspective, because, in case people don't know, Chapman Stadium holds a little bit more people than Lee Snyder Field. But, the overall atmosphere of this game, playing at a collegiate stadium, it's going to make it feel like that big fight feel. And, a couple days ago, the weather forecast wasn't great, but it looks like things might be, clearing up a little bit for a fantastic Thursday night to kick off the season.
Yeah, it looks like we've gotten a break with the weather. I hope that's the case. But yeah, I think it's playing the game at Chapman Stadium, I think is huge for the city of Tulsa and football on the east side of the state. I think it's a great experience for our kids. Had a couple people ask me, they're like, why would you give up that home game at Lee Snyder Field to essentially play on a neutral site? And as you mentioned, we get the gate
Yeah.
from this game, and so the difference between 6,000 and 20,000 people will be a significant boon for our athletic department if the weather ends up being good. And then also just everyone from our players to our parents to our cheerleaders to our band getting to play in that electric environment for the first game in Oklahoma, first 2025 game in Oklahoma high school football.
Now, the last thing I want to get into before we let you go, Coach, is the what I consider the families of Bixby. When people talk about the success of this Bixby program, they always talk about the three pillars of, the coaching continuity. You and your coordinators have been there forever now. The split in 6A, your dedication to the weight room and the strength and conditioning program that you've built over the last 15 years. But I always throw out a fourth one, and that's the families of Bixby. You talk about the Presleys, you talk about the Kirbys, the Rollers. I mean, I'm probably forgetting a couple where they've had multiple guys go through this program and have a significant impact. Your 3-year starter at quarterback, Carson Kirby, he's one of those family members who their family has had a significant impact. Braden Presley, same thing. The families of Bixby football have been huge over the last decade.
Yeah, certainly you mentioned several of them there and a couple others that we have on the team right now that I can think of. Certainly Puckett. We have a
Yep.
young Puckett who's a junior linebacker who's going to be a really good player, Ben Puckett. Blankenship. We've got Gabe Blankenship, a running back, and everybody remembers Zach that was such a phenomenal player for us at running back and on special teams, and then went to wrestle at Oklahoma State. And so you're right. We have had a lot of good, great, not good, great families coming through, and I'm probably missing some others that we have on the team right now. Well, I'd mentioned earlier Sam DeWoody. At guard, his older brother Owen was on one of the best football teams we ever had in 2019 at Bixby. So just great lineage and high expectations. Those families that have had really good players through. There's an expectation for the younger ones to also step up and have that same work ethic and make big plays as their older brothers did. So we're always excited about that.
I'm glad to hear there's another Puckett, and I'm even more glad to hear that he's playing linebacker. Because look, it'd be weird if he was a wide receiver, right? It'd be weird, like after the first two came through, it'd be weird if he was playing wide receiver or another position. A Puckett at Bixby has to be a linebacker. Coach, thanks so much for joining us today. Good luck as you open up the 2025 season, and again, congrats on all the success at this Bixby program.
Well, thanks, Michael. It's always a pleasure to visit with you.
We're going from one team that played for the state championship to another now as we shift gears. Another really big game on Thursday night is Tuttle and Guthrie. Tuttle coming off a 4A runner-up last season, and we have their head coach, Brad Ballard, joining us here on the program. And Coach, you went 13-1 last season. As I mentioned, 4A runner-ups, losing a close one to Elgin. What's the biggest difference in this year's Tuttle team as you head into the 2025 season?
I think we've had some consistent improvement up front on both sides of the ball. Just a little more depth, another year development in the weight room for some of those young guys we played a year ago. Seems to be a little bit more cohesive fit up front. Been really pleased with them so far. But again, we've played a scrimmage, but we haven't played a game yet. So who knows? But we've been pretty consistent at the skill positions. Similar to last year, of course, when you lose Brady McAdoo and CJ, of course, there's concerns, but the guys that have jumped in and filled those spots have done an excellent job. So I would say up front, offensively and defensively, we're just better and deeper.
Anytime you're talking about a team, you kind of start directing yourself towards the quarterback position. Who has their quarterback back? How talented are they at the quarterback position? You have one of the best quarterbacks in the state, Cruz Campbell, going into his senior season. Last year, it was his first year in Tuttle, and the jump he made last year, I think he threw for more yards and more touchdowns than he had in the previous 2 seasons combined. Just a fantastic jump from him during his junior season. What can we expect from him in 2025?
I think more of the same. Gosh, what a year. Statistically speaking, 40 touchdowns and 3 interceptions is a heck of a ratio. I don't care how you slice it. But I think the thing about Cruz is since day one, he's really had a fire to improve every day. He's got the ultimate competitor's heart, and not just in the season. I'm talking about in the off season. He wants to get better. He has totally transformed his body. Just the way he eats, the way we train, everything has been a really good fit for him here. And he's been a very good leader. Man, what a great thing for our young quarterbacks to see him and throw with him, and our defense to have to play against him every day in practice. What a great thing. So he's just an awesome kid. I don't know where he's going to end up. That's not in our hands, of course, but whoever gets him is going to have a great football player and a dude that loves the game of football. He eats, breathes, and sleeps football. He wakes up every morning. How can I get better, coach? And every day he's so correctable. He's so coachable. He talks to people when he needs to talk to people, but he doesn't talk too much. He does an unbelievable job. And I believe he's going to be able to finish his classwork in December. So hopefully that will make him a little bit more marketable to people looking for a quarterback of his caliber.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned whoever gets him, like the stock is going up. So whatever college, pulls the trigger on getting Cruz, they're getting a guy that's on the rise. And I know, look, recruiting high school quarterbacks is so much different than it was even, 3 or 4 years ago. There's just not as many spots at the Division I level, but he's definitely a Division I talent. You mentioned, CJ and Brady McAdoo, and for Cruz this year, it's not going to be as easy as it was last year, because last year, let's face it, worst case scenario, just chuck it downfield. CJ's probably down there somewhere. Brady's probably down there somewhere. But I want to talk about the Lane brothers, Jalen and Jordan, because it seems like the door might be opening for them to take that next step and become, the top 2 receivers in this offense.
There's no doubt about it. And those 2 guys are cut from the same mold as far as work ethic, coachability. They're students of the game as well. But those guys are competitive now. You talk about getting after it in practice. Those dudes know how to practice, and they do an awesome job. But you're going to see a bunch of them on offense. Both of them are just absolutely talented. They're so smart, so savvy when it comes to spaces in the defense, the holes in the defense, and the coverage. They understand it all. They've gotten a lot stronger. They've both put on some weight. I've been really proud of those guys, and they were huge contributors last year. And then defensively speaking, they allow us to do some things in coverage that you can't always do. Excellent corners, both of them. And honestly, if I put them at safety, they could play safety. So just highly intelligent young men with an unbelievable work ethic.
Now, joining Cruz in the backfield, you have the luxury of having your starting running back, Sean Runsaville. Sorry if I butchered that last name. But
all right.
You have him back, and last year I think he ran for over 1,500 yards, a lot of touchdowns. And in my opinion, I'm looking at this Tuttle roster. I'm looking at all the different players across the state. He might be the most underrated player in the state. I don't think enough people are talking about him and what he brings to this Tuttle offense.
Every team has to have that grinder, Mike. There's times when people are going to stick 2 safeties back there and we're going to hand it off. There's just times we're going to do that. And he answered the bell every time last year. I think my favorite part about Sean is he only had 1 fumble all year long, and that's almost 300 carries. I think we had 258 or something like that. We gave it to him, and he had 1 fumble. So I think you've talked about 2 of our better players from last year in Cruz and Sean, and that's a total of 4 turnovers, and those guys had tons of touches between them. So, I mean, if we can take care of the football, and, Sean has become more patient every year. He's a very good wrestler. He's an elite wrestler. He was like a national champion as an 8th and 9th grader. So he has unbelievable balance. He's gotten more patient as he's gotten older, and he takes care of the football. And he does a good job pass protection too. That's a big part of our offense. You've got to protect. So he's a very well-rounded player, and every year he's matured. He's worked harder. He understands his role. He knows that we're going to throw it a lot too, but his carries will come. And when it's crunch time, he's going to have to be there, and he was.
All right, so we got the quarterback down, we got the running back, we got, a couple potential breakout receivers. You have about a little over half of your starters back from last year's team. Who's a guy that you're expecting big things from that maybe the state, maybe, even I don't know about heading into the season?
Oh gosh, it could be a few of them, but I think there's a young man named Tyson Kennedy. He moved to Tuttle last December, played on our baseball team last spring, and he moved here from Enid. He's a very talented football player. He'll play a lot of positions: running back, receiver, safety. He'll probably be a returner on the kickoffs and things like that. Just a really, really good football player. Reminds me a lot of a guy we had several years ago named Cannon West. Do you remember Cannon?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So even wears the same number and about the same stature. So very physical guy. Got a chance probably to play after high school as a DB somewhere, I would assume. And he's also an inside receiver. And he's just one of those guys that can do it all. And, man, very fortunate that he moved to Tuttle last year. So looking for big things out of Tyson. Gosh, I thought Jet McCoy had an unbelievable year last year at safety for us. Lots of interceptions. He's a year stronger and a year better. You'll see him on offense some as well. And then a young man named Donnie Schluter. Donnie's got unbelievable talent and speed. He's a very twitchy athlete with a savvy to go catch football. So he's made some big plays for us. Had a good night against Washington in the scrimmage the other night. So those two guys, I think, are guys you haven't heard of yet that you'll see. We got a lot of guys, just program guys. You know that. Just being in the program year after year, we've been fortunate enough to be pretty consistent, and that's because guys get in the program and work and love playing a role on our team and in our program. And there's 4 or 5 guys you haven't heard of that you'll hear about this year.
That's exactly why I asked the question, because you mentioned the program, and those program guys are always such big keys to the continued growth and the continued success of a program. All right, let's get you out of here on this. It's game week 0, big season opener. You get the Guthrie Blue Jays coming to town. Last season, you guys tied up 24-24. You scored the go-ahead touchdown, the game-winning touchdown in the final minute. This is a battle between, the 4A runner-up, the 5A runner-up from last year, one of the best games in the state. I'm assuming you're expecting another close one on Thursday night.
Always with Guthrie. I just they're really sound. I was joking yesterday. Somebody asked me about them, and I said, man, every time I turn on the freaking film, every year they look just the same to me. They're freaking tough. They got athletes everywhere. They challenge you a million different ways. We're going to have to play a really, really complete game to be in the hunt with these guys. Coach Beebe does a tremendous job, and they don't beat around the bush. I mean, they know what they are, and they know what they're doing, and it's a challenge, man. It's so great for us, Michael. I mean, we tell the kids all the time, this ain't the Super Bowl now. I mean, win or lose, we got to go back to work. When this is over, we got a season ahead of us. But it's so exciting for our kids, and I hope for their kids too, to get to compete against a team of this caliber this early in the season.
And I'm happy to say, while I myself will be at TU for the Bixby-Owasso clash, we will have someone in Tuttle getting all the highlights from Thursday night's game. Coach, thanks so much for jumping on here today, and good luck as you guys kick off the 2025 football season, all right?
My pleasure, and thank you guys for all you do for high school sports. We appreciate it.
He's Tuttle head coach Brad Ballard. Switching gears now, another huge game is Pryor and Sallisaw. We talked about it a little bit, and Kenny Davis, Pryor's head coach, joins us now. He's going in to your seventh season now, coach, and you have almost all of your starters back, especially on that offensive side of the ball. Does this feel like the best team that you've had since you've been at Pryor?
Yeah, it definitely does. Just the amount of depth we have and guys with experience. I mean, we'll start, I'd say 6 or 7 guys that have over 20 starts under their belts, played in big moments. So it's just a little bit different feel of a maturity level on this group of guys.
Whenever I was talking about Pryor this offseason, it seemed like the conversation always shifted to the offensive side of the ball, and specifically with your quarterback, Braden Ward. He returns for his third season as a starter, leading an offense that averaged around 37, close to 40 points per game last year. And I was looking again, Coach, over the weekend at his stats: 35 passing touchdowns, 11 rushing touchdowns last season. It made me have kind of like, remorse. Like, I didn't talk about this kid enough last season because he's putting up, nearly 50 touchdowns on the offensive side of the ball. He's obviously a very big part of what you guys are doing offensively.
Absolutely. Braden's a stud. He's a great kid, coach's kid, great leader for us. He's really this offseason. He's kind of a quieter kid, kind of focused on becoming more of a vocal leader and not just leading by example. The strides he's made in the weight room. He's probably put on 15 pounds since last year. Timed him 40 the other day. He ran like 4.62. I mean, he's really a good athlete too.
Now I want to switch gears and talk about a sophomore that I think has the chance to be very special. Played a lot last year as a freshman. I got a chance to see him not quite a bit, but a handful of times this offseason at various 7-on-7 tournaments. I believe he came to our camp back in May. Help me with his last name. Gage
LaFrere.
Yeah, I just want you to talk about him, Coach, because I saw him a couple times last season. I went back and watched some of his film during his freshman year. He tested off the charts at our camp in May. This kid has a chance to be pretty special.
Yeah, Gage is an unbelievable kid. I think he might be the best DB in his class. Athletically, he's a freak. 4.2 or 4.52 kid. Great in the weight room. And then the other side with Gage is he's just an incredible kid. He never misses a workout. He's there early, stays late. He's hungry to be good. You couldn't ask for any more in a young guy.
I can echo the he arrives early sentiment at our photo shoot back in the summer. I think he was there probably an hour and a half before the rest of his teammate. He was ready to go at the photo shoot back in June. So I can echo that statement, Coach. Let's talk about some of the other guys. We talked about Braden, we talked about Gage, but you have 15 starters back. Let's talk about some of the other guys that are going to have a significant impact on offense and defense.
So a lot of guys talk about first. I guess I'll start with Brock Ward. It's Braden Ward's twin brother. He started at receiver for us. He started some games even as a freshman, so this is going to be his 4th year starting. He starts at free safety for us. Just very intelligent kid. Probably a little bit, if you're weight room wise and stuff, probably a little bit underwhelming compared to some of our other guys, but just a football player. Like, he's tough. He knows how to get open. He's physical. A guy that kind of came on late for us last year, Jackson Parks. He's going to be a junior. He'll be a receiver. He'll play some outside linebacker for us. Guy's 6, run 4.5. Kind of in the last 5 games last year, he had 400 yards receiving. Really kind of came alive. Gavin Roberts, 4-year starter for us, a receiver. I think he was our second leader in receiver last year with like 600 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's back, got a ton of starts under his belt. And then Mason McIlvain, Big Mac, he started at nose for us the last 2 years to be a junior. He also started O-line for us this year, 6'3", 330. And then, I mean, there's just a number of guys, Justin Pryor, Nathan Hansbrough, Aiden Wolf, Caden Rice. They're just I mean, we've got so many returning guys. It's hard to just kind of talk about everybody individually. But Stetson Matheson, start for us at Mike linebacker. He's a stud. I'm trying not to forget anybody, but we've got a ton of good guys. So
It's a good problem to have. It's a
yeah.
good problem to have. You definitely want it this way, against vice versa. Coach, take me into the community because you got a new stadium that's opening up. You're a top 5 team in our preseason rankings. Anybody who doesn't have you at least sniffing the top 5 doesn't know what they're talking about. 15 starters back. This is a program that is obviously hungry to take that next step. You got to take care of business in the regular season, but it's a team on paper that looks like can make, one of the deeper runs in the playoffs in school history. The excitement in the community has to be at an all-time high as you guys kick things off on Friday night.
Yeah, definitely. With the new stadium, and I will say that we've been blessed at Pryor. We have a great community that supports us in so many different ways. You come out a Friday night, we're going to have a packed house. They're doing like a open house thing for the new stadium this Wednesday night, and just the number of views and people commenting how they're going to be there, and people reaching out and asking us about the stadium. It's definitely a different feel from years past, but we do have a great community.
Now, I know Friday will be a celebration of Pryor football. It'll be, a celebration of the town and the community that obviously supports you guys tremendously. But then the ball's kicked off, and there's a football game to be played. The Sallisaw Black Diamonds coming to town, a top 5 team in Class 4A. And when I look at this matchup, Coach, I see a clash of styles because obviously offensively you guys will air it out a little bit. Really strong quarterback play who can light up the scoreboard, and then you look on the other side with Sallisaw, and they're gonna run the ball, and they're gonna run the ball, and they're gonna run the ball some more. They have several guys at the running back position that can get the job done. It feels like a clash of styles as you guys get ready for Sallisaw on Friday.
Yeah, definitely. Coach Tyler does a great job. Anytime you play a Coach Tyler coach team, they're going to be disciplined. Defensively, they're going to run to the football. Offensively, they're going to have good schemes to maximize the talent that they have. But they're definitely a run-first offense. Their quarterback's a good player. They've got the kid that actually started at quarterback for them last year when we played him is now the running back. Just tough kid, good athlete. We're definitely going to have our hands full.
Coach, thanks so much for joining us this week. Happy to see all the improvements going on at Pryor. And I know, just on the outside looking in, this is a community that's hungry to take that next step. And look, we it's been a long off season. We've talked a lot about potential. Now it's time to kick the ball off, and let's see what all those starters returning can do. Let's see what this offense looks like. And good luck on Friday night as you open up a new stadium. I know it'll be a special night.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Now, let's go into our next segment as we do each and every single week with a breakdown on the players to watch in week 0. And I'm going to be honest, look, the game's on Thursday night, Bixby Owasso. We've talked about it a little bit. And when you're talking about that matchup, you have to start with the quarterback position when you have a 3-year starter back in Carson Kirby. Carson Kirby going into this season as a 3-year starter. For his career, he's thrown for over 5,100 yards and 69 passing touchdowns. He's also a preseason All-State second-team selection coming into this season. And when you look back to last year, in that season opener against Owasso, Kirby, he had a bit of a rocky start, but then he bounces back to have a really strong junior season and played really well in that state championship game. Made some big throws, especially down the stretch, to help the Spartans win the state championship. So when you're talking about that Bixby-Owasso clash, it's hard not to start the conversation with Carson Kirby at the quarterback position. Obviously, Bixby has a lot of stars on both sides of the ball, as we mentioned with Coach Montgomery. But, I mean, I'm telling you what, Carson Kirby, a really solid quarterback that continues to get better and better every time we see him. Staying at the quarterback position, but you go from a 3-year starter to a first-year starter. Elgin quarterback Caden Balletto They opened the season against Lawton MacArthur. And I mentioned this Elgin-Lawton Mac game and how Elgin has to replace multiple Division I signees on the offensive line. They also have to replace a 3-year starter at quarterback. And now you have Caden coming in. That's not an easy thing to do, but I got a chance to check out Elgin back in the spring. He's been patiently waiting for his opportunity, and he looked pretty solid back in the spring. Of course, it's a team camp in May, but he was going up against Carl Albert. He was going up against Southmore, and he was holding his own. He can really push the ball downfield. And the thing I like about this Elgin offense is, worst case scenario, turn around and hand it to Ritson Meyer. He had a solid junior season, one of the best players in the state at the running back position. Staying at the quarterback position, and again, you talk about that experience element with Carson Kirby. Tuttle has it as well, and we talked about this guy with Brad Ballard earlier, with Cruz Campbell returning, a 4-year starter in his career. His first 2 spent at Southmore, his last 2 spent at Tuttle. And Coach Ballard mentioned that touchdown to interception ratio, 40 touchdown passes and only 3 picks. He threw for nearly 3,000 yards last season. This is a guy who has the chance to be the best quarterback in Oklahoma this season. The jump that he made last year was significant from his sophomore to junior season. If he makes another jump, and you heard Coach Ballard earlier talking about his work ethic and how all this kid wants to do is play football and get better at football, we could be seeing another jump this week and this season from Cruz Campbell. Can't wait to see what he does in his senior season. Switching to the defensive side, there's too many quarterbacks already. Switching to the defensive side of the ball, the guys that get after the quarterbacks, Dwayne Jones from Booker T. Washington. The Hornets take on Muskogee in their season opener. Jones is the state's top defensive lineman prospect in the 2027 class. He moved to Booker T from Owasso prior to the 2024 season. And when you talk about Jones as an overall prospect, he's not maybe necessarily going to jump off the page from a measurable standpoint, but you watch the film, you watch him in person, and you see a guy that has a massive wingspan and a deep bag of tricks. He can beat an offensive lineman in a variety of ways, whether it's power, speed, spin moves, juking inside, like whatever he needs to do to get in the backfield, he's going to be able to do it. Dwayne Jones, definitely a player to watch, not only this week against Muskogee, against a first-year starter at quarterback, but in a relatively new offensive line, but throughout the season as Booker T tries to become that serious contender for the state championship. Another game that we mentioned earlier was Deer Creek and Bishop McGinnis, and a guy that I'm really excited to see is Gage Gibbons at the wide receiver position. This guy has some of the, significant momentum that we've seen from this offseason. He became a legitimate D1 prospect this offseason. A lot of momentum coming in to the 2025 year. All signs point to Gage Gibbons having a breakout season this year for the Antlers. I saw his track times, I should say, throughout the offseason in the spring, and he was continuing to break records. He has legit speed, and he's going to be whoever ends up winning that job. We talked about it earlier with Deer Creek, their starting quarterback position. They had a 3-way battle back in the spring. I don't know if it's still a 3-way battle now or if they've settled on a guy, but whoever that quarterback is, he's going to have a very solid target in Gage Gibbons at the wide receiver position. At the running back position, you have Jackson Harris going into his senior season at Sallisaw. And we talked with Pryor head coach Kenny Davis earlier in the program about how Jackson Harris has the opportunity, moving from quarterback to running back, to be that bruising runner for the Black Diamonds. He ran for 1,000 yards last season, 9 touchdowns last year. And I mentioned that the clash of styles in this matchup, as Sallisaw is going to want to run the football. It's not just Jackson Harris. He leads a stable of running backs that can beat you, but Harris, obviously the most productive of those running backs, returning for Sallisaw in 2025. On the defensive side of the ball, you have Jalen Battle on the defensive line for Edmond Santa Fe. I mentioned it earlier when we broke down that Jinx Santa Fe matchup. You have a battle on the line of scrimmage with multiple D1 guys for the Jinx O-line, multiple D1 guys for the Santa Fe D-line, and Battle leads that group as he's committed to Baylor. He committed there this summer. Back in February, he was the MVP for the defensive line group at the Under Armour camp, and then his his recruiting stock absolutely blew up after that. And now the thing with Jalen Battle is if he's healthy, he is one of the best defensive linemen in the state, but that just hasn't been the case over the last 2 seasons. So he's hoping for a healthy senior year and to become that freak coming off the edge for Santa Fe. At the running back position in that McAllister Broken Bow matchup, you have Jordan Clark going into his senior year. He had a breakout season last year for the Buffaloes. He ran for over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. And, seeing him back in the spring, I could see him taking that next step as a running back this season. I mean, he ran for 1,100 yards last year. I think he could be a 1,500-yard back, depending on what McAllister does this season, maybe even flirts with 2,000 yards. He has that type of style to be a workhorse at the running back position. And under a first-year head coach in Jeff Craig, it'll be interesting to see how often they get him involved on the offensive side of the ball and what that workload looks like for Jordan Clark going into his senior season. Another guy we mentioned earlier when we were breaking down Lawton Mack Elgin is Joshua Rushing. He committed to Tulsa over the summer. He's without a doubt one of the top wide receivers in Oklahoma's 2026 class. And really, it's been that way for a while now. He's one of the most, big physical wide receivers in this group. And when you look at the 2026 class as a whole at the wide receiver position, there are quite a few names on there that have size and have that ability to break a game open. And Rushing has been that guy for the Highlanders since his freshman year. And then finally, Takari Bethel from Owasso. We mentioned a lot about that Bixby Owasso game. It doesn't matter if Bethel is lined up at wide receiver, kick returner, wherever he is on the football field. He is a threat to take it to the house. And when we rewind to this time last year, it was that season opener against Bixby that Takari Bethel could not be stopped. He had a fantastic performance against the Bixby Spartans in the season opener. However, injuries really limited his junior season as a whole, but there is no doubt when Bethel is healthy, he is one of the most electric football players in the state of Oklahoma. All right, so now that we've given you a breakdown on the 10 players to watch heading into week 0, we shift gears, and now it's your turn. Q&A time. We got a couple questions this week, and again, if you have questions for the preview show, you can DM us, send us a tweet on Twitter at PrepRedzoneOK, or you can email me, Michael@PrepRedZone.com, to get your questions in, and we will answer them right here on the preview show. First question, very simple. Who wins on Friday night, Marlowe or North Rock Creek? This was a game last season. North Rock Creek won 17-7, but I'm going to be honest, North Rock Creek doesn't have Caleb Hawkins anymore. They do have his younger brother Tyson at the defensive back position. He became a breakout star last year. He was a ball hawk for North Rock Creek. So I think they're still going to be good. But when you're talking about replacing a running back who was one of the best in Oklahoma last year, it's not an easy thing to do. So Marlowe has the majority of their starters back this season. I'm leaning to Marlowe, but it's probably going to be another competitive game. North Rock Creek's still going to be good in 2025, but replacing a star like Caleb Hawkins at running back is not an easy thing. This was a question that I really enjoyed, and it really sparked some thought. Is there a team outside of the top 5 that can win state? So any of the classes in our preseason top 10 rankings, is there a team outside of the top 5 that I can see winning a state championship? And the answer is, it's twofold. One, probably not. I mean, let's be honest. Like, there's a reason why, the top teams are where they are. Now, our team's going to rise up, obviously, but can I predict that right now? I'm the one who did the preseason rankings, so it's one of those double-edged swords where if I think a team outside the top 5 could win a state championship, they probably would be in the top 5. But at the same time, look at Class 5A and look at 6 through 10. You have Shawnee, Lawton, MacArthur, Collinsville, McAllister, Newcastle. Newcastle made it to the semifinals last year. Shawnee has almost everybody back, and they're really talented. Not enough people are talking about Shawnee. Lawton Mac has multiple Division I guys. Collinsville, they had a really strong season last year until injuries kind of derailed things. And McAllister is the ultimate X factor, the ultimate unknown, because they could be really good this season. So if you're looking for a class that could just turn into absolute chaos, any team in the top 10 could possibly contend for a championship. Class 5A would be one that I point to, which is absolutely insane considering the stranglehold that Carl Albert has had on Class 5A over the last several years. But if you're looking for a class that could turn into absolute chaos, and you have a team that was ranked number 10 in our preseason rankings, like Newcastle, making a run to the semifinals, 5A might be the class for you. Again, get your questions in at PrepRedzoneOK. You can tweet us, you can DM us, you can also email me, Michael@PrepRedZone.com, and we'll answer them here on the show. On Thursday on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma, we will put out our first edition of the Prep Red Zone Oklahoma Player of the Year watch list. At the end of the season, we announce and award our Player of the Year. Last season, there was no real debate. It was Shakota wide receiver Elijah Thomas. Last season, there were 2 juniors on the final Player of the Year finalists. That we do 10 finalists for Player of the Year, and 2 of them were juniors. So they automatically get on the Player of the Year watch list the following season. So those 2 players, Vian standout Mason Wright, as well as Del City standout Ricklin Holmes. Both of those players were finalists a year ago, so they will be on the first edition of the Player of the Year watch list. Also, the 3rd player on this week's watch list is Elgin running back Ritson Meyer. He had a really good season last year. He was really, the last time we saw him in a football game, he was running the ball over 40 times, helping carry Elgin to their first ever state championship in school history. And with a first-year starter at quarterback, there's no doubt that Elgin is going to rely on that running game, and more specifically rely on Meyer taking his game up a notch this season. So without a doubt, 3 fantastic players. It wouldn't surprise me at all if all 3 or whatever, the majority of those guys end up on the final list that comes out following the season in December. So every Thursday, we'll add 3 more players to our Player of the Year watch list, and you'll get a sneak peek of those 3 players right here every Wednesday on our Prep Red Zone Oklahoma preview show. Now, what to expect for the rest of the week on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. Of course, every single Wednesday, we'll be right here on the YouTube channel. Again, go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe if you haven't already. We'll have the preview show every Wednesday. We'll have a ton of highlights as well. This week, we're going to be at Bixby, Owasso on Thursday, as well as Tuttle and Guthrie. We'll have highlights, post-game reactions, stuff like that. On Friday, I'll be in Edmond. I'm going to do a little double dip starting at Edmond Santa Fe for their matchup against Jinx. And then I'm going to make my way over to Edmond Memorial as they host Del City. So we'll have highlights of all 4 of those games on our YouTube channel. As I mentioned, on Thursday, we published the Player of the Year watch list breakdown. On Friday, we have a cool feature that we've done in the off season in the past, but now we're bringing it into the season. We're going to have a First Look Friday breakdown. That's when I go on and check out the film of players that I've never written about on Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. We're trying to put as bright of a light on Oklahoma high school football as possible, and this is one way we can do it. A lot of people know about Mason Wright, and know about Ricklin Holmes and Ritson Meyer, and all the star power that's in Oklahoma. But who are some of those guys who I've never written about, who I've never watched, who I need to learn more about? Because whether they are just flying under the radar, or maybe they're about to have a breakout season, you can find that breakdown on Friday. As I mentioned, we're at 4 different games this week. We'll have a ton of content and coverage on the website. We'll have it on social media, as well as our YouTube channel. Again, Bixby, Owasso, and Guthrie, Tuttle on Thursday, as well as Del City, Emma Memorial, and Jinx Santa Fe on Friday. On Saturday, we kick things off with our updated team rankings. Again, not every single team playing this week, so there might not be a whole lot of movement, but we'll update our rankings in each class heading into week 1. That comes out on Saturday. Saturday night, we have our overall week 0 recap, taking a look at some of the top results. whether it was an upset, whether it was a game that went down to the wire. We'll take a look back at week 0. That article comes out on Saturday night. And then on Sunday, one of my favorite things that we do is the top performer breakdown. And over the last couple of years, we've really expanded it. And there have been weeks where we featured 30 to 40 kids on the top performer breakdown every Sunday. So we'll have that out Sunday for week 0. If you have a top performer, if your kid or if you yourself, coaches, if your player went off on Thursday night, Friday night, let us know so we can feature them in the top performer breakdown on Sunday. Again, you can tweet at us. You can DM us at PrepRedzoneOK on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Or you can email michael@PrepRedZone.com. All right, that does it for the first edition of the Prep Red Zone Oklahoma Preview Show. Hope you enjoyed it. A lot of really good football that's going to be played on Thursday and Friday night. I can't wait for this season to kick off. It's been a long off season, but I'm looking forward to another great year of high school football here in the state of Oklahoma. And I'm looking forward to doing this every single Wednesday. We'll be joined by coaches. We'll be breaking down the top games. We'll be taking a look at the top players in the state of Oklahoma. This is going to be a fun thing to do every single week to get you ready for the week in high school football here in the state of Oklahoma. Again, my thanks to Bixby head coach Loren Montgomery, Tuttle head coach Brad Ballard, as well as Pryor head coach Kenny Davis for joining us on this week's episode of the Prep Red Zone Preview. We'll be right back here on Wednesday. Again, smash that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. A lot of free video content coming out here starting right now. The 2025 football season is finally here. Can't wait to get this thing kicked off. Hope you guys will join us every single week here on this preview show, as well as every single day on PrepRedZone.com/Oklahoma, as we will have new content every single day during the 2025 football season. Until next Wednesday, I'm Michael Knight, your host and director of Prep Red Zone Oklahoma. Enjoy the football.